How's it going, everyone? Hope your day is going well. Today we're talking about the RSI USB connectors that you can install into your Axys snowmobile in order to charge your phone, your accessories, your GoPro, anything like that. So let's get into it.
So first thing we need to do is get all of these side panels off, both left and right hand side, as well as the hood. This just makes things easier to work on. And don't forget to watch till the end of the video. I'll give you my thoughts on it, a quick review, and whether or not I think it's worth it to buy the harness or not. Now the kit that I'm installing is specifically for the Polaris 850 Axys models, but RSI does make kits available for the Skidoo Gen 4s, as well as a few other Skidoo models, as well as the older Polaris Axys, IQ and Pro Ride chassis, and they also have kits available for Arctic Cat and Yamaha. So next we're going to remove all the push pin clips for the knee panel as well as the intake. This way we can get better access to both the steering column and the top of the frame in order to install the harness. And obviously don't forget to remove the two top Torx bolts that attach the intake to the top of the frame. So since the pull cord goes through the knee panel, you don't have to completely remove it. You can just disconnect the electrical that goes to the switches on the knee panel and then just pull it backwards so that it's sitting on the tank. Once you do that, you'll see the electrical harness bag on the frame. And we're going to go ahead and open that up so we can get to the accessory power plug inside. The accessory power plug should be labeled, and it should be the same type of plug that what your harness comes with from RSI. But either way, it should be the only blank plug inside that bag. Next, we're going to plug in the harness and close up the bag around all the connectors. Just making sure you route the harness out the end of the bag that goes towards the top of the frame. One thing you might find is that the harness is pretty long. They do this just to give you some extra just in case. I did have quite a bit of extra, so I just zip tied it to the frame. But you can shorten it just by either soldering it or just using a couple butt splice connectors. And as you can tell, I'm just now finishing up removing the intake by removing the two 10mm bolts that hold the ECU to the intake. So that now gives us a lot more room to work with. So now we're going to route the harness up through the hole in the top of the frame. Now this will be slightly different depending on where you want to route your harness cables. If you're going to route the cables up to the windshield compartment, you may need to install your hood real quick just to see where you're going to need to route the USB wires. But I'm going to go through the hole in the frame since I'm going to be running the OEM dash bag and they're going to live inside there. The biggest reason you wouldn't want to run the wires up to the windshield compartment is that when you do want to take your hood off, you'd have to remove the wires every time you want to do that. So having the dash bag makes it a lot less of a hassle. I also decided to run my wires on this side of the frame just so the harness as well as the extra wouldn't be too close to the steering column. Next, we're going to mount the little converter box to the frame. So we're going to use this applied little piece of Velcro. I mounted mine to the inside of the frame. You can mount yours anywhere you like. And obviously if you've already shortened your harness, you don't need to do this next part. But we're going to coil up the harness and then put a zip tie around it, and then either zip tie it to the frame or the existing harness to make sure that it's out of the way. And now we need to open up a small hole in the bottom of the bag in order for the wires to slip through. We're just going to mock up the bag about where it sits and then see about where we want the wires to come through. For me, I chose the very bottom middle of the bag, and conveniently that's about where the wires come up through the hole in the frame, so that's where I made my cut. For me, I just used a small X cut in the bag. The bag material was a little bit thicker than I actually anticipated, and it was about the size of the USB port itself. That way when I slip both the wires up through, there's not a big hole just sitting there, since it'll have somewhat of a decent seal against the wire. So next up, before we put everything back together, I'm going to reinstall the intake so that I can start the sled and just test out the wires just to make sure they work. Yep, works great. Now we just need to throw everything back together, and don't be like me and almost forget to plug in the electrical behind the knee panel. And after that, you're all set.
So I've now had the charging cables on the sled for the whole season now. I've used them quite a few times to charge both my phone, my GoPro, as well as my Garmin InReach. It's been pretty convenient having them inside of the dash bag. It's kept the cables nice and dry. That way no snow or water gets in them and potentially shorts out either the cables or something else in the sled. So I didn't get the short iPhone cable in here yet. I still have the long one in there just because I really haven't had time to go get a new Apple cord. I've not had any issues with them not charging or not working, anything like that at all this season. It's actually came in pretty clutch a few times where I'll forget an extra GoPro battery, but I'll have the cable to be able to charge it, and then I'll just throw my GoPro in here and charge it while I'm riding. Now obviously these do not work if the sled is not on. The motor has to be running for the stator to output power to these cables. Now, if you have a sled that's battery powered, I don't know if these will stay on. That's something you might have to do a little bit more research on, or just install them, see if it does or not. As far as if I would get these cables again and install them again, absolutely. It is very much worth the cost for them, especially if you have the dash bag like this. And I've not seen if you can put them into the windshield compartment, but I'm sure you could since it's already vented from the bottom. So you just make one of the holes a little bit bigger. But having it in the dash bag here was way, way more convenient. Alright guys, that's all I've got for you today. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions or comments, leave it in the comment section below. I try to reply to every single one that I can. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you know when I upload my next video. I want to thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.